Hello and welcome. Today we want to solve the information technology for October-November 2025, paper 4, advanced practical. We want to do the graphics task. So we are going to move on to task 2. So we want to focus on task 2, the Apple question. Okay. So how we are going to solve this paper, we are going to do question by question. So we'll start with Apple. And for the next part of the Apple where you are seeing the bytes, you will go to there will be a next video that is created for that, for these Apple bytes. Okay, so for this one, we are going to focus on this part and we make sure we get it step by step. And if you have any questions or concepts that you also want to have videos on, you can just comment on the comment section, and then we can do the videos to help each other understand and go into the exam well prepared. Okay, so let's do this question together. So when you're answering the question, you have to read the question in full so that you really understand what the question wants you to do. Despite that, yes, they are pictures and you can actually see what they want you to do. It is very important that you actually read the text through first. For task to create a vector graphic copy of this apple, the moment they say vector graphic, I know I have to go to my Illustrator. The body of the apple must fit in a 300 pixel square. So I can see that this body has to be a 300 by 300, and it also illustrated with this square. So this body should be inside a 300 by 300 square. Okay, the color of the apple must be RGB 1800, or you use this hash hexadecimal value. Okay, that's the color that they want. And then in our wireframe mode, we have to see it like this. The indentation between the base of the stalk and the apple must be darker. So the base of the stalk, that indentation must be darker. The stalk must be brown. So our stalk, they must be brown, and gradient must be applied on the leaves. We can see that it's darker, going lighter. There must be light blooms, is shown, and we have those light blooms that are shown by the arrow there. Save the image as an SVG, scalable vector graphic file named Apple, followed by a serial number, country number. For example, Apple ZZ999999. Okay, so this is what they want. And after reading, you feel okay. So this is what I'm supposed to create in my Illustrator, right? So we move on to our Illustrator so that we go and start our Illustrator and start to draw the apple that we are supposed to draw. Okay, so let's open our Illustrator and then we create our apple. Right, we go on new, and then we are going to make these pixels. Right, we can leave it as 500. We know in a 500 we want to create an apple 300 square, and in a 500 by 500 we can fit in our apple there. So there we have our space, and we are going to go to our ellipse tool. Right click on ellipse, tap once, and then make sure the chain there is activated so that when you change the 300, the height also changes, and you create your 300 by 300. You click on the selection tool, you move it there, and make sure that you put in the color that they want. So we double tap there, and then either we are writing our B4 here, B4 0000, right, to pick the color, or you write under RGB 1800. So it's up to us. And then when you click OK, it now has that it now has that red color there, but you can see there's a stroke, so we want to remove the stroke, zero there, so that our image does not have a stroke, right? We click on direct selection 2 and we click the apple so that we can see the notes, and then we go to our curvature 2, we click there, we click there, we want to have this inside, right? So this is our curve that we're clicking, that we're creating, and then we want to also curve the bottom part, click there and click there, then we curve inside, right? So this is our shape that we want, and we can raise the other side where we see that it's a bit raised, and we push in a bit that side, so we want it to just look like the one that we have been given, right, on the question paper, right? Now that we have this, we want to create the light blues. So we are going to, so it's up to you what you want to start with, okay? So I can have my circle to create the light blues that we have on that side. And then on this circle, I'll start with one that is big. Let me start there. And it's carrying the color of the apple. I click on Alt. We have another one. On this one, I'm going to change the color of this one. I want it to have a lighter shade of red. So I'm going to go there and make it lighter. Okay, so you can see it's now lighter, and I'm going to reduce the size. And click Alt and have another one. So I'll keep changing the shades. Of the circle, so I'm going to put it inside. And then click on Alt, have my last one. That is going to be much lighter now. Okay, looks a bit darker. Let me change it to a much lighter color again. And we put it in there. Okay, so I'm going to click on the one outside and try and reduce it. Okay, so this is my first light blue. I highlight, right click, view. So this is now one item. Going to pick it, put it inside my apple, rotate it, and reduce the size. Okay, and position it where I want it. Click on Alt, have the smaller one, So these are my two light beams, first light beams. Okay. So now I want to have the other one, that is this side. So I can use my pen tool. I click at that corner. I click on Shift so that I can have a straight line, right? So whenever you want to have a straight line, you have to click on Shift, okay? So when you click, you have to click and hold, okay? So that the effect that we want will come. Okay, click and then you drag. So you want to drag to create that cave. Okay. So you come back and click where you started, right? So it should give you anchor. When you see it, it says anchor, you then click, right? Then we want to come back to where we started. When it says anchor, we click and then we drag, right? So when we are dragging, we want to create that light blue shape, right? That we have seen, okay? So this is the shape that we have seen, and we want to have our shape. You can see that it's showing that cave that we want, and we then choose in a color which is lighter, right? So this is our blue, okay? And then now we want to do the stroke, so we can use our rectangle. We can go there, use our rectangle. This is our rectangle. And then when we have our rectangle, we go and choose a color. They say brown. So we click on fill and we choose a brown color. Maybe a bit darker. So when you have our brown color, we want to use the K feature 2 to have inside, right? But we can now go and use our direct selection tool, because we can see that this part was a bit raised up. So we want to make sure that we also change the direction to be a bit up, like that. Okay. So when we now have this, we can click on the selection tool and tilt it a bit, tilt it, right? And now we can do the leaf. Let's do the leaf. So when we want to draw the leaf, we can use our pen tool, click, and we want our fill color to be green. So we can even start by choosing our color, green. And we use our pen tool, we click, and then we click on Shift. So when we get there, we click and then we curve to create the shape that we want. Okay. And then we go back to where we started when it says anchor. We click and we can use escape and we have that shape, right? So we can right click, transform, reflect, and we want a copy, right? So this is the shape that we've created. We can highlight the two, right click and group. So this is the leaf, but you can see that the leaf is supposed to have a curve inside. So we can go back to our question paper to check with our light blooms and that. And we have our stock. Now we want that leaf, it should be curved inside a bit, right? And we put in the gradient. So we go back. This is our leaf, right? We can actually increase it in size a bit so that we can see better. Right, so we go and use our pen tool to put on nodes, right? We want to put nodes on the apple, right? Let's see if it's selected. So we are putting nodes on the path, right? Now that we have nodes, we click on curvature tool. We can use the node that we used. We click on it and we drag it inside. We control it, right? So this is what we have created. Okay, because we want it to curve a bit. And when you see it's too much, you can even push it inside, outside. And when you are happy, we can say, okay, let's now go to putting in the gradient to the shape. Okay, so we click on gradient. And this, we want it to be one shape. So when we put in the gradient, we want it to be realized as one shape. So we are going to ungroup this shape and regroup it again. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to use unite for these two, right? So if we unite them, then it's going to be one other than grouping. So now the gradient can now show on the shape as one. Now we put in our green and our light green and our dark green. We want to go on gradient. So we are going to select a lighter green. First node. You can select maybe that one. And then where we have black, we are going to select a darker green. Okay. And let's use a radial gradient. And then let's Okay, now we can go and click on the gradient so that we can put it out there. And then we want to stretch it like that. Okay. So when you are happy with your light green and dark green effect, right, so we are just making sure that this is the effect that we want, because we can see that from the question paper it's darker and going lighter there. Okay, so this is the leaf. We take the leaf, we want it to be smaller now. You remember to click on shift so that all elements are reduced, but keeping the proportions. So now we are going to arrange it and then click on Alt to have another copy of the same leaf, but this one has to be smaller. And we can rotate it a bit. Okay, so for the leaf, let's reduce it a bit, this one. And our stroke, we are going to reduce it a bit. Right, so we are going to group this. After grouping, we want to move it into the apple, but we have to create the indent. Okay, the indent that has to be darker. So we are going to use our pen tool. We click on shift. We said when we want a straight line, we have to use shift. And then when we click, we double tap and drag, right? We're just dragging, shaping the curve that we want. Okay. So when you're happy, you come back, you click where you started, click on anchor, and now we have what we want. Click on escape to release that. So this is the indent that we want, that we are going to put there. But the indent has to have a gradient. So we are going to go to gradient and the first note we are going to use the eyedropper there to pick a color. So pick the red, the one that the apple has. And our second color we are going to choose on black. Okay, and then we are just going to go with linear gradient. And then with our linear gradient, we are going to, we can see that the red is coming, they're going to black. So we want it to be opposite. So you work with the angle, okay? So usually with your 90, you can, okay, so now you can see that the black is on top, so you can choose a negative value. So with our negative 90, we can see that so we can have our red there and our red coming. Okay, so we can see that we have our red going to black there. But what we can also do is change your opacity so that it becomes a bit realistic. So it's not too sharp of a change. Okay. And we want our stroke to be coming from there. From our indent. Okay, so we can now work with our gradient so that we have our clean fill. So we go to our gradient with our shape selected so that we know we are modifying this one so that we feel we have a better feel of our gradient. Okay, we want the leg to be there with our head on top. So let's move our black. Okay, we can move to our gradient 2 and make some adjustments. Okay, so we are just adjusting. The colors. So when you are happy with your gradient, you can see it's getting darker and you can see that red there. Okay, so if we move it aside, we can actually position it where we might feel more happy to be. And then we can even reduce the size. Okay. So when we are happy with our indent, we then move in and bring our stroke there. Okay, so this would be what we expect to have drawn on the apple part. Okay, so this is our first task. When you have done this, you feel this is what I'm expected to have done. Okay, so what you need to do now is to save this file, export. We are going to export as SVG, and with the name, let's make sure we export it with the actual name that we have. Okay, so in our, make sure you are putting it in the correct folder that you want it to be saved in. Okay, so this was our November 2025. I'm going to just save it in the, with the correct name, which is Apple with a capital letter P, Apple, then followed by your center number, right? So you put in your center number and then your candidate number, like that. Then you export. So this will be the end of your first task. After doing this, you would have done your first task correctly. Okay. So we are going to end here for this question, and then we meet in the next video when we are now doing the next question. So you can try to follow step by step, and then also do it as we were doing. When we have this, then we move to the next video where we are now going to be explaining the bite part of the question. Okay, so this is the end of this task. It's bye for now.